Move on to delegations. We have one delegation this evening, Wendy Alford. With regards to the Integrity Commissioner report, we councillors Jeff and Paula Banks. Ms. Alford, go ahead with your delegation, please.
Thank you, Mayor Higginbotham. I am Wendy Alford, one of 3 spokespersons for the New Lakes Grassroots Group. We refer to ourselves as RLGG, which was formed in August of 2023. You've heard from 2 previous delegations on the Commissioner's complaints, one from Jordan DeLong on the Maxwell investigation, and the second from a gentleman named Bruce Leggett and his witnesses on the Carr investigation. Make no mistake, this would be extraordinary delegations at any municipal council table in the province, both in the number of them and in the process that allowed these delegations at council. In your stated quest for the truth, we are here to speak to the RLGG authored complaint in protest of conduct violations by councillors Paula and Jeff Banks, and for which Councillor Paula Banks received a penalty of 16 days. Before, though, we delve into that specific complaint, there are a couple of key aspects of Integrity Commission complaints that we wanted to mention. Firstly, in spite of all attempts to equate Integrity Code of Conduct complaints with criminal proceedings, they are most definitely not the same. Codes of conduct were imposed by the province because prior to their introduction, there was no mechanism to correct councillors' bad behavior and hold those same councillors accountable for their words and actions. Secondly, complaints are anonymous for a reason, to protect complainants because councillors have influence and power over decisions regarding their constituents or employees. Imagine making a complaint about a councillor and then having to go before them at a planning meeting over a change to your property, or belong to a group wanting to apply for a community grant, or to worry about your job being at risk if you speak up. Look no further than the previous delegations on October 7th and 15th for proof that the reasoning for anonymity is well-founded and as it was evident at this table. This evening I'm speaking to the complaint RLGG authored because the public should be aware of the lack of accountability demonstrated by the banks and the 3 enablers at this table. It was noted in the Integrity Commission's report that the allegations by RLGG were not denied. In response to our complaint, the banks provided a 54-page litany of excuses as to why the councillors' banks felt entitled to call RLGG a hate group and to violate various sections of the Code of Conduct. Why you did something or said something is not a defense for not complying with the Code of Conduct. At one point, I even asked the CAO and clerk if you had read the Code of Conduct, as we have observed a staggering number of them in the past year. In those 54 pages were a great many assumptions, accusations, outright falsehoods, and a fair bit of whining. Mainly focused on the RLGG August 23 blue flyer, the subject of which were the facts and an argument against the decision of councillors Jeff Banks and Paula Banks, councillors Dunfield, Hutchings, and Carr, to throw the hub concept on the trash heap after 6 years of effort, wasting over $306,000 of taxpayer money in favor of a hall library for Portland. The councillors' banks have repeatedly said the flyer was full of misinformation, but to this day still fail to give examples of what is incorrect in that flyer. Councillor Hutchings' misplaced outrage about RLGG providing contact information on the flyer fails to mention that those were email addresses and phone numbers posted on the town's website in August 2023, which is where the decision was ultimately made over the Portland Hall Library, and RLGG accepted it and moved on. Some members of council, though, continually reference the hub and the blue flyer, and I have 3 words for you: get over it. Also in their 54-page rant, they accuse RLGG of being a political arm of councillors and or the mayor. The banks claim in an attempt to discount RLGG that we spout false conspiracy theories. The irony of that statement, though, is huge because the 54 pages is a dizzying list of conspiracy theories and lies they continue to spout about RLGG. What the party of 5 councillors should be more concerned with regarding RLGG is that we are an opinion and advocacy group for the residents of Rideau Lakes Township. If you are not hearing from those residents and they are talking to and supporting RLGG, Have you examined yourself as to why that is the case? If you don't wish to be identified as part of the party of five, your votes should reflect that. They do not, as every vote of any consequence is 5-4. I'm going to give just one examples that demonstrate the truth of this statement. We recently encouraged people to fill out the 2025 budget survey, which you have now discounted. And we received from supporters, but I'll only quote from just one email. I would like to note that I did not complete the survey this month. I certainly would like to have had input, but I was not prepared to submit all the personal information requested. If the survey had asked, are you a taxpayer in Rideau Lakes, I would have said yes and continued. Given the climate in the district, I play it safe, and subsequently my voice will not be reflected in the survey. This resident feels they are at risk of being bullied by councillors if their name is seen on a survey. So stop and ask yourselves why they would think that. Other disturbing aspects of the bank's response were the emails provided in the 54-page defense document. Councillor Paula Banks wanted to bar anyone they identified as being RLGG from attending a strategic plan meeting. Another email stated that former CAO Mike Dwyer had asked her if she and Jeff were going to have him fired. Why the banks thought these and other emails were some kind of support in their defense was not only a bit bizarre, but it showed a serious lack of judgment when they were included. The Integrity Commission even noted in his report he would not state the allegations and remarks in that 54-page reply, as they did not assist her or Councillor Jeff Banks in defending the complaint. Moreover, RLGG has been accused, mostly by Councillors Paula Banks and Jeff Banks, but also supported by Councillors Carr Hutchings and Dunfield, of attacking the banks in particular. This was, of course, repeated in their IC response several times. And yes, we do challenge Councillor Paula Banks more often than other members of council. That's because Councillor Paula Banks does most of the talking at every council meeting, causes most of the drama in the meetings. When you seek attention that often, don't bother complaining when you get it. Also repeated in this complaint was the accusation that RLGG is the architect of the divisiveness on council. Over and over you have said, RLG must stop. You've had enough. Let me tell you who's had enough. RLGG, its supporters, and the residents who agree with RLGG have had enough. We have the right to freedom of speech and to voice our concerns at council and about council. Your attempt at demonizing RLGG was the basis of our complaint. The banks and the rest of the party of five act and talk wealth of knowledge because they've operated heavy equipment or renovated houses, worked in recreation, or maybe managed their own bank accounts. So much supposed knowledge that in fact not only do you dismiss the public engagement you say you want, you attempt to silence and discredit anyone that doesn't agree with you. And not just the public, but the expertise and experience of staff, as is in the latest case our treasurer is departing. It was the same with expert consultants you hired, as in the case of retrofitting Chantry, before you even heard the first report from that consultant. Councillor Paula Banks added an emergency motion to go in camera to discuss firing that consultant. I know this because Howard and I were both sitting at this public meeting when an email popped up on the screen stating the reason for the request. In the same meeting, you will be able to see Councillor Banks' reaction to her report. She obviously didn't want to hear it. You dismiss integrity commissioners and even the Ontario Ombudsman and the Minister of Municipal. Any feedback that isn't flattering to you or doesn't agree with you is attacked, and people offering feedback are usually insulted. The previous Integrity Commission complaint, in which Paula Banks told a resident to F off in an email, would be a case in point. Sadly, intimidation has been a winning strategy. Individual taxpayers, community groups, and businesses are afraid to identify themselves as disagreeing because they may very well be publicly embarrassed online, in a meeting, or worse. There will be retribution in the form of denying something they need from the township. Some of you have said you've never heard any complaints. These are the reasons why. There is a large and growing number in the township that has no confidence or trust in the party of five as councillors. When you stop contravening the code of conduct, then, and only then, will the complaints stop. The lack of decorum and civility in council has been noted throughout this township, across the province, and gain attention in media locally and in Kingston and Ottawa. This council is a dumpster fire, and yet you continue to want to focus on our reaction to your behavior, when you should be focusing on your toxic behaviors that caused our reaction. You take no responsibility or accountability for lack of ethics or your disgraceful behavior toward the public, the township staff, and your colleagues on council. You are wholly responsible for the divisiveness on this council, not RLGG. We observe it, and we will continue to report on it. I would like note that this week we will probably post the bank's response and our own responses to the Integrity Commissioner's questions to us on our website at rlgrassroots.com. I thank you for your time, and I will tell you, Mayor Hugenboom, the backs of the 5 are a powerful message to anybody that's watching. Thank you.
All right. It's certainly a different delegation from what we've heard in the past. Are there any questions or comments from members of council? All right. Councillor Debbie Hutchings, please.
I want to know why you wouldn't let Linda Carr have a delegation in defense of herself, but you'll let other people.
We did allow them.
No, you didn't.
I'll let you hash that out. Good evening.
So I was asked to have 3 members, public members, put on the agenda, and I advised the individual that I couldn't because our procedural bylaw was already full. The agenda was already full of delegations, and at that meeting, those individuals were in attendance, and this council voted in favor of allowing them to speak at that meeting. So it was permitted via this council.
I was following the procedural bylaw based on the staff advice. Okay. All right, we will have a motion now moved by Councillor Pollard, seconded by Councillor Carr. Be it resolved that the Council of Corporation of the Chanticleer Lakes acknowledge the delegation of Wendy Alford regarding the Integrity Commission reports for Councillor Jeff and Paula Banks. For the motion, any discussion?
Yes, take my name off that, please.
Okay, would someone else like to second the motion to acknowledge the delegation? Councillor Delaney. Okay, any further comments? Then I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion is defeated, so we will not acknowledge the delegation.